Hi. Happy Wednesday. Or it's Wednesday here anyway. It's Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I don't know what time it is or what day it is where you are. Maybe it's early Thursday or maybe it's 100 years in the future. Who knows where you are and what you're up to. But here it's Wednesday, so happy Wednesday. I'm Shaun. Of course, I'm your teacher for the next hour or so. Welcome to the Smrt live class streaming. And if you were in Mark's class earlier, welcome back. And if you've been here before, if you're here last week, good to see you. I see some familiar faces again in the stream. And if it's your first time, then welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay. I know I'm looking a little fancy today with my tie. Selma, thanks for the. Yeah, I want to be fancy pants today. Or fancy tie, I guess. So, where should we start today? Let's just jump right into it, okay? Today, we're talking about agreement. The theme of the class today is agreement. All right. I see some people talking about homework from last week. We'll get to that for sure. Let's first talk about agreement. To agree. What a wonderful thing it is to agree, to share an opinion with someone, to see, as we say in English, to see eye to eye with someone is to agree, right? And agree can mean so many different things. I mean, agree just means to get along, to share a common interest. So nice it is when we all can get along, right? Agreeing, just getting things done, reaching some kind of, reaching an agreement, making things happen, business, agreement is necessary. Or just this guy, okay? When it comes to agreeing, the term to be an agreeable person is just someone he's easygoing, he's willing to go along for whatever. This is, I don't know if maybe this is Jimmy. Jimmy's agreeable, right? You want to go hike up a mountain with Jimmy? Jimmy's there, yeah? He's ready. So with the word agree, it doesn't necessarily have to do with just opinions, right? It can be a shared goal or a shared interest, or as far as Jimmy is concerned, it's just he's good for whatever, yeah? Also, to agree, you can agree with a abstract or inanimate thing. It doesn't even have to be people that agree. For example, in this picture, the country air, you can say the country air agrees with me. It just means you like it. It suits you. You find it enjoyable, all right? So I hope this lesson today agrees with you because, well, consider the alternative. Agreement it's good to agree, of course. What's the alternative? Conflict, fighting. This person who I think is maybe the opposite of Jimmy, agreeable Jimmy who wants to climb a mountain. Then you have this, we call stonewalling. Even something as wonderful as 3 massive cheeseburgers piled on top of each other, which looks great, can disagree with you. Obviously, in this case, those cheeseburgers disagreed with, I don't know if this is Pete here. Let's say Pete. Okay, so Pete's lunch disagrees with him. Okay. Don't worry, there's a point to all this. I'm not just rambling here, okay? We're going to tie it all together. So, why are we talking about agreement? It's important to know, actually, it's important for me to say that agreeing isn't always necessary. Disagreement is not always a bad thing, right? I mean, in a professional setting, in business or whatever it is, in science or in any kind of professional field, some form of disagreement or debate or conflict is good. It can lead to improvement. It can lead to discovery, right? I mean, yeah, we can't all be like agreeable Jimmy all the time, and why would we want to be, right? And sometimes some form of conflict or disagreement in life can be fun, right? It can be enjoyable to disagree with one another, but that's life. What we're talking about today is English, the language. We're talking about grammar. And in grammar, when things disagree, you've got problems. Okay, so what we are going to be talking about today and why I just went on a 5-minute rant about agreeing is today we're looking at something called subject-verb agreement. Okay? Subject-verb agreement, a simple concept that many students have problems with, or make mistakes with, I should say. Even at the high level, this is a mistake. This is something that you learn in beginner English class, but this is a mistake that even the higher level students will make. So this is why we're focusing on this. And even though we're looking at it kind of in terms of writing, because you guys are going to be writing some stuff down for me today, subject-verb agreement applies to spoken English as well, and students will often make mistakes with it. Okay, so what are we talking about when we say subject-verb agreement? All right, how can a subject and a verb not agree? Right? Look at this is sad. Yeah, I hate to see a subject and a verb disagree like this. Okay, so we're going to try to get past this this disagreement between the subject and the verb and figure out what that means. Now, the concept of subject-verb agreement is very simple, very basic, but like anything in English or any language, there are lots of little rules and exceptions that make it confusing and complicated. Okay, so the basic idea of agreement is a singular subject takes a singular verb, right, or a singular form verb. All right, so for example, the teacher often gives his students homework for the weekend. I know I do, although some students might disagree with this. In this case, the subject, teacher, and the verb agree, meaning you've got a singular teacher, one teacher, and then you've got the S on the verb give to make gives, and therefore that is grammatical, that's correct. Okay, so singular subject, singular verb, that is agreement, cooperation, let's say, between subject and verb. Okay? Obviously, the other side of it is plural subject. A plural subject takes a plural form verb. So, in this case, the teachers and parents meet twice a year to discuss student progress and performance. Okay? So, again, teachers and parents together is plural. They're two people or more. And then your verb, well, your verb here, meet, no S on there, because that would be a problem. So plural and plural, singular and singular. That's the concept. That's the whole thing. That's subject-verb agreement. So maybe we can just stop class early there and we can all go home. But it's not quite that simple, unfortunately. All right? When I show you this sentence, he walked to work, students can very easily recognize that that's a mistake, right? He, walk together is a problem. You got to put an S on there. He walks to work. And again, this looks like a beginner mistake, but it's actually quite common across the board, across the levels, right? So that's a problem with subject-verb agreement, that he walks is the subject and the verb agreeing. Okay? So that's the basics, but today I'm going to be showing you all the little complicated rules that we use to avoid problems with subject-verb agreement, okay? Because I don't like to see this. I don't like to see my subjects and my verbs disagree. I'm a peaceful guy. I want everything to be peaceful. Like this guy, yes. He wants everybody to get along too, right? Like him and Jimmy, okay? So we're all going to try to get along, and we want our subjects and our verbs to get along too, right? Even, I mean, look at this subject-verb combination here. The subject is, he looks sorry, I guess. He probably didn't even do anything wrong. But let's reach an agreement. Let's get past this, all right? And get to this subject-verb agreement. This is what I want your sentences to look like. I want your subjects and your verbs not just to agree. I want them wrapped up in little blankets, drinking tea together and talking about their day. That's what I want with your subjects and verbs. Okay, so this is where I hope to get you from this to here. Okay, so how do we make our subjects and verbs agree? Lots of different rules. I'm going to go through some of them now, and then I'm going to get you guys doing some work for me. All right, so strap in. Here we go. And of course, usually I mention this at the beginning of class, and I didn't mention it. Of course, most of you know by now that Lane is the moderator. He's friendly, he's helpful. If you have questions, put it into the chat and he'll send it to me and I will try to answer them as best I can, all right? Yeah, to see you guys like the sound of blankets. You can wrap yourself up in a blanket if you want, get comfortable as we go through these rules, okay? So, strap yourself in, wrap the blanket around you, and here we go. The first rule for subject-verb agreement has to do with something called compound subjects, okay? Compound subjects means two or more subjects connected with and, okay? So two things or three or four or however many connected together in a series or with the word and is considered a compound subject, and they are usually plural. For example, here's a sentence: the rink and the pool are in need of maintenance. Okay, so you've got rink, pool, two things together with and that means that the verb is are and not is. Okay, so that sentence is correct, and that's the basic rule for compound subjects. Okay, here's one more. It says, here are your passport and your visa application. So you've got two things again, passport and visa application connected with and that means that your verb has to be the plural form, are, right? So that's it. But of course, like anything in any language, there are exceptions. There are so many exceptions to the rules. So rock and roll, ham and cheese. What do these have in common? They're great. What else? They are an exception to the compound subject rule. Like fish and chips, here look. Fish and chips is the dish most commonly associated with England, I think anyway. If anybody out there is watching from England, you can feel free to disagree with me, all right? So fish and chips, two things together with and, but we don't consider it a compound subject as a plural because fish and chips is functioning as one thing, okay? It's like one dish is fish and chips, or rock and roll is a form of music. Ham and cheese separate would be plural, but you put them together in a sandwich and it becomes a singular noun, right? Ham and cheese is a variety of sandwich, yeah? So that is one exception. And I'm going to show you something maybe even a little bit more complex here too. Compound subjects that are connected with any of these things. I'm going to put them up on the screen here. Or, either or, neither nor, and not only but. When you're using these connectors with compound subjects, you have to keep in mind that the verb has to agree with the subject that it's closer to. All right? You might be like, what? What does that mean? All right. Well, don't look at me like that. All right? Again, the verb needs to agree with whichever subject is closer. So let me show you two examples. Two sentences that are almost identical. Okay? I've just flipped the order around a little bit. Now look at this. The first one is, neither the mayor nor the city councilors have addressed the recent rise in crime. Now in this case, the verb have is the plural form because councilors is plural and it's closer to have. Now in this case you've got one singular subject and you've got one plural subject, but because this one is closer, then have agrees with this subject. Okay, so if you flip it and you look at the example underneath, it says neither the city councilors nor the mayor has addressed the recent rise in crime. Now, the verb has changed because now I have put the singular subject closer to the verb. So it all depends on what subject is closer. If both of the subjects are plural, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay? Or if both of them are singular, again, it doesn't matter. If you say neither my mother nor my father, it's going to be singular. But just be careful if you're messing around with the order with this particular structure, okay, with these linking devices. Okay? So I see someone saying they didn't understand that part, but we're gonna look at some examples in a bit. But again, it just has to do with the order of the sentence and whatever subject is closer to the verb will determine whether the verb is singular or plural. Okay? Again, just take a real close look. You can always look back at these two sentences to see the difference there. But again, this is one exception that you may not see all that often. Okay? So let's look at the next rule. So that was compound subjects. Compound subjects. And again, if you guys have questions, fire them into the chat, and we'll go through them together. Okay? Indefinite pronouns is something else you have to be careful of when you're writing your sentences or when you're speaking. By indefinite pronouns, I mean anything in this list, right? Things like each and either, one, someone, everyone. Everything in this list considered an indefinite pronoun. Yeah? It means indefinite pronouns are singular. So all of those words in the list that I just showed you will take a singular form verb, like it. Okay, so let me show you an example. In this case, everyone in this room is capable of achieving his or her goals. So in this case, you use is because everyone is singular. Okay? Show you another example here. One of the reasons people stay away from this area is the high crime rate. Now this is, the reason I'm showing you this sentence is because this is the type of sentence where students often make mistakes. Okay? Because in this sentence, the subject is one. But sometimes students will see the word reasons there with an S on it, and they'll become confused, and they'll make that verb plural. But don't be confused by that, because reasons is not the subject. One is your subject there. Reasons is part of that prepositional phrase, of the reasons. A few weeks ago, we were talking about phrases, and I mentioned to you guys that the prepositional phrase is never the subject of the sentence, and therefore you have to keep an eye out for that when you're writing your sentences to avoid this mistake. Okay? And the same with people. In this case, people is just part of this clause that's modifying the word reasons. So the subject is one, the verb is. All right? So just keep an eye out for these relative pronouns. In the same kind of category, the words each and every as determiners. When we use the word each or every with a noun, then that verb is going to be the singular form as well. Okay? So, examples of that, we say each student was given. Even though maybe you're talking about multiple students, when you use the word each, it's singular. Okay? Also, every person in this class needs to be familiar with subject-verb agreement. All right, well that's connected to what we're talking about here, right? So again, if you're using each or every, then that verb has to be singular. All right? Now I know I'm going through a lot of information, but don't worry about it too much, guys. If you miss something, we can always address it if you have questions. And when it comes time for you guys to do the practice exercise, you can always be asking me questions about this too. I'm going to be giving you lots of rules here, and then we're going to be using them, all right? So don't panic if you're starting to panic, all right? Collective nouns. I think I've got 2 or 3 more big kind of main rules to talk about before you guys get working for me, okay? So a collective noun, by that we mean something like a team or an audience. Oh, yeah, wow, that's a huge crowd of people. So crowd, audience, family. These are collective nouns. These are many people together functioning as a singular thing. Okay, so you think about your family as a whole, or a crowd as one whole thing. In that case, like most of these words here, a collective noun will be singular, usually. All right. Of course, like most things in English, there are going to be exceptions, right? But usually, collective nouns like family, crowd, audience, team take a singular form verb. Okay? All right. So, an example, the class organizes a party at the end of each semester. So in this case, the class is functioning as a group, right? All 30 people, or everyone in the chat, you are my class, and you function as a whole. All right, or in this case, again, the audience was silent as the guitarist began to play. Yeah? Now again, like everything, as I said, there are going to be some exceptions, like this. You have to ask yourself this question. When you're looking at this collective noun, whether it's family or class or group, are you using it as a whole, or are you focusing on the individual members of the group, of the noun? Okay? So if you're focusing on it as a whole, then it's singular. But if you're talking about the individual members, then you might end up using a plural verb. What do I mean? What are you what am I talking about? So let me illustrate it. In this case, the first one is singular. The couple, all right, the couple sitting next to us was arguing with the server about the bill. Now in this case, the word couple is functioning as a singular thing. The two people, the man and the woman, are together. They are united in their fight against this waitress or waiter who is trying to overcharge them for their meal. All right. This next one, I'm just gonna pop myself off the screen so you can read the whole sentence here. Okay. So the next one, the couple sitting next to us were arguing about money throughout the entire meal. So in this case, the subject or the verb is were, because couple is not functioning as a whole. It's actually two members of one couple arguing against each other. So it's maybe a man and a woman sitting in a restaurant, and they are arguing with each other about the money. So that's the difference. You have to make sure that you know, is this collective noun functioning as a whole, or is it kind of separate and you're focusing on the members of the group? Okay, so I see a question just came up. Paula asked, is this correct? Either pizza or tacos are okay. Either tacos or pizza is okay. Paula, that is perfect. That is exactly right. When you're talking about the compound subject, exactly. It depends on what subject is closer. All right. Perfect. And I see Marianne is saying, which part is confusing? Let me know which part is confusing, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. Okay? But if you're talking about this as in the singular and the plural, yeah, it's complicated, but it really depends on really what your focus is. Again, if you're talking about the class as a whole, the class is planning a trip, or the class are debating the issues today, meaning the different members of the class are debating. But yes, I know it is tricky. But again, if you get your questions in the chat, I'll try to help you out with that and clarify. Okay, now speaking of tricky, again, another one that trips students up, I thought I would throw this out here before you guys get doing some work for me. And again, I'm going to give you one more rule after this, and then you guys are going to do some practice for me, okay? So the number is singular, a number is plural. And I know that's confusing and maybe infuriating for you as an English learner to see a number is plural, right? But let's look at some examples here. Now I think actually Mark put this in a little video on our Facebook group the other day, okay? So we said the number of people in our Facebook group is growing. So the number is singular because the number is one thing. Alternatively, a number of people in our Facebook group are watching the stream. Now, in this case, a number of people in our group, this is plural because it's talking about kind of like a percentage, one little kind of sub group within our group. right? So that's why it's plural. We got a question coming in from, oh, Oscar, good to see you. He says, neither the teachers nor the principal is kind. Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, it's not good for the students. It's unfortunate for the students, but that is an excellent sentence, Oscar. Yeah, that's great. Perfect. Okay. So, yes, here, a number. Now, this leads us into our last kind of rule before you guys get some practice going, okay? And that, delicious, cheese. This is about fractions and percentages and units of measurement, okay? So, the verb in the sentence depends on, in some cases, the prepositional phrase, or it depends on the thing or things being divided. Again, that's confusing too. So let me give you an example, okay? Pizza, delicious. Everyone likes pizza. Half of the pizza was eaten. So in this case, half is your subject. In the sentence, pizza is singular, one pizza. So half of one pizza was eaten. So your verb is singular because pizza is singular, okay? Alternatively, a third of the pizzas were vegetarian. So now you've got 3 pizzas, only one of them is vegetarian. Again, you guys can check my math. I've been known to make some mistakes from time to time in my mathematical calculations, okay? But I think in this case, because you got what looks like some kind of sausage or something on there, that 1/3 of the pizzas, plural, were vegetarian, which is appropriate, I would say. You really only need one vegetarian pizza in there, although Mark might disagree with me, I'm not sure. He can discuss that in the chat. But in this case, you're using the plural verb because pizzas is plural, okay? And that's when you're dealing with fractions or percentages, you really have to look at the thing that it is a percentage of in order to determine what your subject, what your verb should agree with, right? Okay, so, I almost revealed the mistake of the week, but we're not going to get there yet. All right. If you guys have questions, put them in the chat. If not, let's get to work, okay? So I'm going to ask Lane if he would be so kind to share or put that link for the exercise in there. I'm going to open it up on my screen. Say full screen here. I'm going to make this nice and big so everybody can see it. Okay, so I have given you about 8 or 9, we'll say 9 sentences, I think, in this case. So, 9 sentences, some of them are correct, some of them are not. Now, I love doing this to my students, not just saying go through and fix them or finish them, but you have to decide, is this sentence, in each sentence, do the subject and verb agree first? If they do, great. You can put a happy face next to it or any kind of emoji that you want. All right, you know, I like my unicorn emojis. You can put one of those next to it. If it's correct, great. If it isn't, you have to fix it. Okay, so identify the problems with subject-verb agreement and make corrections. So let's do the first one together. And yes, the happy music is coming. I know that everybody's excited for the happy music. It's on its way. Don't worry. Now, the first one, letter A. A number of people in attendance at the meeting was not satisfied with the city's plan for reducing crime. Yeah, so in this sentence, if you look very closely, you will see that a number is your subject, and the verb over here is was. Now, what we said before is that a number is actually plural. So in this case, was is a mistake and has to be changed to were. A number of people were not satisfied. Okay, and that's it. Easy, right? I know, I make it look so easy. Just like that. Okay, so look through it, find the mistakes, put your answers in the chat, and we'll put them up here, and I'll go over the answers together, okay? I'm going to pop off the screen for a minute, I'm going to put the happy music on because I know that Oscar's dying for it here, okay? So it's better than listening to me, I'm sure. So get to work, find me the mistakes in subject-verb agreement, and fix them up. All right? Go for it. All right, everybody, that was good. You guys work fast. All right, lots of answers coming in the chat. Let's look at some of them together. Let's see what you came up with. Good. All right, so we did A together. I see a little bit of disagreement in the crowd, I guess, all right, between a few people with the answer to B. So some people said B is wrong, some people said it's right. Now in this case, I would say in this sentence, the subject is committee. Here, let me come down here so I can highlight a few things here. Subject is committee. All of this stuff here is really just a prepositional phrase modifying committee. So what kind of committee? A committee of business owners, residents, community leaders, and so on. So none of that really matters. None of that is affecting the subject and the verb. So in B, a committee is going to work with police to address the neighborhood crime. In this case, B is correct. All right, I'm going to put that here with an exclamation point because committee is singular. This is a collective noun, and is singular. Therefore, we're good. It's correct. Okay. So, again, if you guys have questions about that, let's keep them coming, and we'll go over them. Now, C is an example of me deliberately trying to trick some of you guys, and I think it worked because sometimes I like to keep some information hidden, yeah, just to fool you a little bit because it brings me joy. Okay, so C says neither mathematics nor physics was his strongest subject in university. Here you've got a compound subject, but like we said before, you said neither A nor B. Now the subject has to agree here, right? So we've got Sabrina 96 thinks that the answer to this one is physics were his strongest subject, but actually that's not the case. Letter C is correct because one thing I didn't bother to mention is physics, even though it has an S on it, is singular because it is a field of study. Okay, mathematics, physics, just like English, sociology, and biology, these are types of study. Don't be fooled just by an S on a subject. In this case, it is singular, and physics is closest to the verb was, so it's fine. Okay, so yeah, Sabrina, just be careful of that one. But thanks for your answer. Good. What else is coming in here for D? One of the main reasons for the recent police crackdown on gangs are the public pressure. Selma called me out on a mistake. She says I'm wrong with D, and that is right. So 1 here is your subject, and in this case, the verb here is, I put are, and that's a mistake. It has to be is. Okay, and one of the main reasons is public pressure. Okay, what about E? Rhythm and blues are still a popular style of music worldwide. What do we have here? Some people say E is correct. Who else? Anyone else say for E? Arguya? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but it says E is correct. Looks like I'm tricking some people with E as well. Oscar, I got you on that one too, because in this case, rhythm and blues, again, it looks like a compound subject, right? And this is what I mean by, I noticed that some people in the chat were saying how easy this is sometimes, but it can trick you, because in this case, rhythm and blues looks like a compound subject, but in fact, rhythm and blues is one style of music together, R&B, right? If you've ever heard of the style R&B, that's rhythm and blues. So E is a mistake. It has to be rhythm and blues is still a popular style of music. The little trick should have been that article there. Okay, so rhythm and blues is a popular style. Okay, a few more here. We've got F. Okay, F, looking for an answer for that one. F says, every citizen has the responsibility to report a criminal act. Who thinks it's correct? F. Where's an answer for F? We got E, F. Oscar says it's correct. And in this case, Oscar, yeah, you got it. And Arguya as well, you say F is correct. It is. Every citizen. In this case, we said when you use every, you want to use it with a singular form verb. That is great. Okay. What about the question in here? Sabrina says, how should I know about this popular style of music? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, there are always going to be little things out there, unfortunately, that you're not familiar with. But it's the same as rock and roll, for example, Sabrina. Don't worry about it too much. There will always be little things that can trick you with your language. It happens to me too. I make mistakes every once in a while as well. Every 6 months or so. Yeah. Okay, so G, the police said that each of the teenagers who were accused of the crime or accused of online harassment were going to be investigated. Now, in this case, I know that Marianne caught it. I don't know if everybody else did. I see that. Get me another one for G. G. Yeah, I think a few people got it. Now with G, it is a mistake and you had to fix it twice, right? Because it should be each of the teenagers who was accused of online harassment was going to be investigated. So you got to change both of those verbs because, again, of the word each, okay? Each of the teenagers. Okay, two more. Minhee. I don't know if we have any. Do we have any Koreans in the class today? Any Koreans in the chat? Minhee sounds like a Korean name. So Minhee is the only one out of all the students who have ever gotten a perfect score on this assignment. So in this case, I would say Minhee is. That's fine, right? Does anybody else have an answer for H? Yeah, Muhammad got it. It has to be here. Has ever, because we're talking about one. The only one who has ever gotten a perfect score. All right. Thank you, Muhammad, for that one. You nailed it. And the last one, I, says 2 meters of the floor were covered by a large carpet. Anyone give me an answer for I? What do we got here? In this case, a couple of you got it. A couple of you got kind of tripped up on it. 2 meters of the floor, in this case, would have to be was covered because the floor is a singular thing. And in this case, 2 meters is similar to what we were talking about with fractions and percentages. Okay, so half of the floor was covered, 65% of the floor was covered, and in this case, 2 meters of the floor was covered by a large carpet. All right, so this is good stuff. Now, some of the stuff looks really easy, but you have to be careful of it because it's such a minor mistake. It's one of those little mistakes that sometimes students think, it's no big deal because if I make this mistake, you still understand what I mean. If I say he walk or he walks, you're not going to change the meaning of the sentence. But it is an important mistake because it can very easily take something that is a high-level use of language. You may be able to write at a high level, but if you make these little mistakes, to some people they might seem like beginner mistakes, so you want to avoid them. Okay, so speaking of mistakes, let's pop back into the presentation here because I want to do, of course, what do I want to do? I want to do the mistake of the week. It's time once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the mistake of the week. Let me pop back here. We'll go to the pizza. All right, here we go. So, pizza, forget about pizza. Let's talk about this week's mistake of the week. Now, again, if you guys have questions about subject-verb agreement, you can keep putting them in the chat and we'll try to answer them. I know Mark is in the chat there too, maybe answering some questions. But let's focus on the mistake of the week. I am going to pop off the screen and put Oscar's favorite happy music on there. And I want you guys to look at this sentence. And again, this is a race for domination to see who is the best and fastest and smartest student on the internet at this moment in time in history, okay? So can you spot the mistake? Here's the sentence. I'm not going to read it because sometimes it's hard for me to read a sentence without accidentally fixing the mistake. So read this sentence, find me the mistake, and I will pop back on, take 10 seconds and see what you can do. All right? I'm out of here. All right, I'm back because some people got it. I see Mark in there giving people hints about today's class. Trying to help you out. Nicer, maybe Mark is nicer than I am, maybe, I don't know. But I think it looks like, who was the first? Marianne is being hard on herself. She couldn't get it today. That's all right. You've got a couple championships under your belt there. That's fine. Oscar put an answer in early but didn't quite get it. I see that you noticed, Oscar, that the order of the sentence is kind of weird, is kind of wrong. You wanted to switch there and has, but actually I would say that I think Kanako maybe was the first to get it. And the answer is, the mistake of the week is has. All right, and why is this a mistake of the week? Well, because, as Mark was trying to hint in the chat, this is a mistake with subject-verb agreement. In this case, the subject of the sentence and the verb do not get along very well, okay? Because has should be have. Now you ask why. Only recently have there been many cases of robbery in this area. In this case, what is the subject of this sentence? Where is the subject? It says only recently have. That's strange. Usually you see the subject before the verb, right? And this is exactly what we're going to be talking about right now. You have to be aware that sometimes the subject comes after the verb in a sentence. This is what we call inverted word order. All right? Sometimes when we want to get fancy, when we want to be cute and stylish, or we add emphasis to our sentences, we will often flip the order of the sentence, particularly the subject and the helping verb, around, and it can cause confusion for students when they're reading it, and mistakes if they don't notice it. So only recently have there been many cases of robbery in this area. So as I said, this is what we call inverted word order or inversion. Okay? I see someone says there is the subject. No, okay. Back in this case, there is not the subject, because there will never be the subject of the sentence. Okay? Here, cases. So cases have been in this area. Okay? Cases of robbery. So let's clarify. Let's talk about it together. So in some cases, the subject and the verb will be inverted. Okay, so the subject will come after the helping verb, kind of like how you see it in a question. Now, it might be confusing to some of you, but it's definitely something that you have seen, and you've even seen it today. I've given you an example earlier like this. So think about when we use words like here and there. When you start a sentence with here and there, those are not the subjects of the sentence. Look at this sentence, for example. There are several reasons to watch Shaun's class online. I agree with that. No disagreement there. But in this case, the word there is not the subject. It's what we call an expletive. It's an introductory word that in itself really doesn't have much meaning, right? In this sentence, reasons is the subject. Okay, so reasons, several reasons to watch Shaun's class are there, technically. So reasons is your subject. Are is your verb. So in this case, the helping verb and the subject are inverted order, kind of like in a question. All right. Now this is some complex stuff that we're not going to talk a lot about today, because I could actually spend an entire lesson just on this type of inversion. And yeah, maybe I will. All right. But this is something that we do that you have to be careful of. So let me show you another example, because as I said, oftentimes we use it to show emphasis and style. We want to get cute. All right. In this case, you're looking at something like this. Down the path and through the birch trees is a lovely village. Now, people don't usually speak like this. It's usually something you'll see in writing, okay? Or maybe a formal presentation or something like that, okay? But if you look very closely at the sentence, you'll notice that the subject and the verb is inverted. What is the subject of this sentence? The subject is village at the very end of the sentence. Now remember, weeks ago, and I mentioned it earlier today, I told you that prepositional phrases are never going to be the subject of a sentence. So down the path, through the trees, that is not the subject. Those are just extra phrases, okay? Village is the subject and is your verb. So a lovely village is down the path and through the trees. So in this case, again, you have to be careful of the order when you're deciding how you're going to make your subject and your verb agree, okay? So again, this is complicated stuff that I'll go into more detail with. But how about this? Just to give you one more example, only with his closest companions does he speak about his personal life. So here, you've got the subject is here, and you've got a helping verb before it. Now, to be continued on the inversion, I want to drive home this idea of subject-verb agreement one more time. Okay, so let's get back into the exercise. We've got a few more minutes, okay? And if we go a couple minutes over, that's fine. I want you guys to do something for me. You can start it, and whatever we don't finish, you can do for homework, all right? So this is what I'd like you guys to do. Go back into the exercise. Okay, we'll do a couple of these together. And then I'll send you off for the week to do some practice maybe, okay? So scroll down here all the way to the second page. Now it's your turn to be creative, to show me what you can do, to show me how you can use this language. So I have started 8 sentences for you. The first one is one of the most popular methods. All you have to do is finish the sentence with your own idea, making sure that the subject and the verb agree. Now, just to be simple, I've asked you to just use the verb to be. So is, are, was, were. Keep it simple, but finish these sentences and make sure that your subject and your verb are in agreement. Why don't you take 2 or 3 minutes, okay? Put some answers in the chat, and then we'll go over it together as one big happy family. It's one big happy collective noun, and then I'll set you free for the rest of the week. Okay, so do the first 3 or 4, finish the sentences and put them in the chat, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, so get to work, happy music coming back on, and Shaun is disappearing once again. Go for it. All right, guys. Yeah, some good answers coming in on the chat. Let me put a couple of them up here, and then we'll sign off for today. But I do want to go over a few of them here. Okay, so I think the first one I'm going to put up here was from Aaron, I think. Yeah, so in this case, one of the most popular methods of learning new language is listening. Sure, that's great. I think Sabrina said one of the most popular methods of learning is dancing with your students, I think it was. Is that right? Dancing with your students? I'll try that. Maybe I'll try that next week. All right? That's good. So in this case, one is the subject, is the verb. Good. Subject-verb agreement is intact. Everything is wonderful. Number two, and we'll just do a couple of these and then I'll send you on your way, gang, okay? Number two, a group of 10 students. Sabrina feeling some hostility here, I think. So in this case, okay, interesting. Now let's put this up here. A group of 10 students were killed by me. Now, this is violent, which is fine, but also slightly incorrect, right? Because remember we said a group is collective, okay? In this case, because if it's a group, because, well, maybe it depends. If you kill them as a group or if you kill them individually, maybe that will depend on the subject-verb agreement. That will be another class that we'll have to discuss that, I guess. Oscar says a group of 10 students is missing. Oh no, is messing around in class. And somebody else said Luciana said a group of 10 students is doing homework. Great. This is really good. Okay, let's do one more, and then we'll finish up. So Chateau number 7, getting super fancy, says, let me put this up for all to see. Okay, neither the students nor his parents, much to my chagrin, are ready to leave now. All right, meaning, yeah, anger, kind of, my disappointments. This is good. This is really good. So you guys are catching on. This is good. So this subject-verb agreement, just make sure that when it comes time to do writing assignments, basically, obviously in speech, you want to try to make sure that you're catching these little mistakes that you're making. But maybe it's even easier when you have a writing assignment before you submit that essay, before you send that email to your boss or your teacher. Make sure to go through it and look specifically at your subjects, find your subjects, look at your verbs, and make sure that they do agree. Because as I said before, it's not a mistake that is really going to affect the meaning of your sentence, but it is going to instantly make a possibly complex, very sophisticated, high-level sentence down, kind of bring it down to a lower level just because your subject and your verb disagree. Okay, so watch out for that mistake. Obviously, mistakes are a beautiful thing. Don't worry about it too much, but to improve your level and your range, and make sure that you're looking out for it. For homework, obviously, you guys can finish these sentences. You can write your own and submit them to me next week if you want. So last week, I told you, if you wanted to, that you could finish this exercise on comma splices. Now let me put this up on the screen. We shared this last week. Not this thing, but here. At the end of class last time I said you can take these sentences, read through them, and tell me if they're comma splices or not. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to sign off, all right? If you did some of this stuff, if you have this document done, and you want to kind of check over some of your answers, you can stick around and ask me questions in the chat, and I'll answer for about 5 minutes before I disappear. But I am going to sign off from the cam and answer some of your questions, okay? Thanks for coming, guys. It's just an hour goes by so fast. And, oh yes, I also should mention this, that last week we mentioned that we were thinking about changing the time of this lesson. And we've decided not on changing it yet, but that we are actually going to conduct a poll, do a little research. So we're going to have a poll in our Facebook group, Learn English on Facebook. where we're going to put the question out to the group as to when the best day and time for this lesson is for the most people, to help us decide when the best time is for you guys, okay? Because I can do this whenever. I've got nothing going on, right? So right now is Wednesday afternoon, but we're going to put a questionnaire out there to see what time is best for you. Look on our Facebook group, Learn English on Facebook. It'll be out there sometime this week, that questionnaire, so you can put your 2 cents in, your opinion on when this class should be, okay? Until then, whatever day it is or whatever time it is when I come back and see you, we'll see you next time, okay? Keep writing, keep reading, keep speaking, keep practicing your English, and we'll see you back here whenever that time is, okay? So until then, enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you next time, okay? Thanks, guys. And again, I'll be in the chat for 5 minutes or so if you guys have questions about last week's class or anything that we've talked about today. All right? I'm out of here. See you later.